Welcome to the Ryder Realty Podcast. Many times, buyers and sellers coming into the market don't know what to expect, have lots of questions, and don't know where to turn. That's where we come in. We want to be a resource to teach you the ins and outs of real estate to help you be more informed, more comfortable, and feel confident that you've picked the right realtor. So sit back and enjoy today's content. The nice thing about our country, one of many wonderful things about our country, is we have the freedoms to do a lot of things, including whatever we want to with our own stuff without professionals. We can have babies without doctors. We can teach our kids without teachers. And a more simple example, we can sell our own clothes. We can sell them ourselves on a garage sale. We can donate them. We can take them to a secondhand store and get some money that way and make it a little simpler on ourselves. We can even hoard our clothes, for example. My favorite sweater is 18 years old. And the reason I know that is I see my son in a picture with me when he was like a year and a half old. And I still wear it even this year, but I love it and it's comfortable and I like how it looks and it's old. So I don't even know where I was going with that other than adding a story. But anyway, we can do whatever we need to meet our needs with our stuff that we want to do it, which is great until it's not. Sometimes we think we're saving money or we think we're helping ourselves, and really what we think is helping can turn into our biggest nightmare. And that is exactly how I see many times a for sale by owner working out. So I'm going to give you a bunch of examples here of things that all have either happened to us, as in me personally, deals that I have personally done since I've been a realtor, or that our office has done. So these are like all legit real stories of for sale by owner nightmares that have all happened to people that I know. And the reason I'm telling you this is because it's easy for me to say as an agent, hey, you should not sell your own house. You should do it with a realtor. And I get the temptation because my husband and I bought our first house for sale by owner, and we also sold that house for sale by owner. And when we bought it, it was terrifying. I was scared to death. When we sold it, it was a little bit scary, but also kind of fun. And that's also how I got the real estate bug as an adult. Having said that, my husband's uncle is an estate attorney who did the paperwork, who helped us, I guess, kind of held our hand in the process where we would not have been able to do it without him. So he had some knowledge there that helped. But so I can see why it's tempting to sell your own house, but it's not as simple as people think. And it's amazing how much they don't know, even if they have, bought a house recently. And I'll get into more of that with these examples. So here goes. Example number 1. We bought our first house for sale by owner when we were looking to buy. It was a very rural area. We were basically 2 towns we were looking at, maybe 3, but the third one had nothing for sale. Our ideal town had 2 houses for sale that were in our price point. And the one that we bought, I swore I was never going to buy because I did not ever want to live on that street. It was busy. Just not what I wanted, but I ended up loving the house and we bought it. And like I said, it was terrifying. Like, we had no idea what we were doing. They had no idea what they were doing. And I know that because of what happened in the story. So when we were, buying this house, the sellers were super sweet, very nice couple. And I asked him why they were selling their own house rather than listing it. He was a very nice guy, like I said, but definitely a cocky, arrogant air about him, like he knew it all kind of a thing, which is exactly what he said, or proved, I guess, by answering the question. It says that there was nothing a realtor could do that he didn't know how to do when he was not paying the money. Well, turns out he didn't know everything a realtor knows, and probably couldn't do everything that they did, because he did not know until days before closing that he had signed a document to pay our closing cost. That was not how they had done it when they bought their house, years ago, because that was the only house they'd bought since they were newly married, and did not realize what that meant. And honestly, I don't know that we even did either. We had the contract, it was filled in, And that was that. So that also should show you as buyers that even if you buy a for sale by owner, you should also have your own representation. It's not a bad idea for a couple of reasons. Number one, you may not know what you're doing, even if your for sale by owner seller does. And number two, there's a really good chance that they don't know what they're doing either, which is how our story worked. Anyway, it worked out in the end. We bought the house and it was fine. And I will tell you this too, just to go with the whole scared part. At closing, the county we were living at the time did what was called round table closings, which they don't even do that anymore in this county. But everybody sat around the table at the same time. So it was me, my husband, the sellers, the attorneys, and for whatever reason, there were like 2 or 3. I don't know why there were so many. And I am like, young. I think we were 24. I had never been in trouble. I'm at this table with attorneys. It was like the weirdest feeling. I did not know what I was doing. Totally overwhelming. I do not even remember anything about that. I don't remember signing papers. I just remember sitting there around the table, which is why I always go to my clients' closings, because I know how scary that can be and just wanting somebody who can explain stuff to you. So let me give you some more examples. Here is another one that I'm going to share. So in this case, it was a for sale by owner. He was flipping the house. And I can only assume that people don't use realtors for the same reason that our seller didn't in the house we were buying. And that was because they feel like they can do what we do, and they feel like they want to save money. Now, when we sold our house for sale by owner, it was because we wanted to save money. We had only lived there like almost 2 years to the day, or like a year and a half. And there just wasn't enough equity for us to really make anything. And we actually had a realtor. He said, "Hey, I understand what you're thinking," gave us his blessing. He was super great. So, in this case, there was definitely equity. I just kind of feel like it was probably the same way. Like, he was flipping this house and he wanted to make all the money that he could. So what did he do to figure out his cost? He took his son's closing statement, that breakdown of, who pays what, seller and buyer, literally transferred the numbers onto a sheet of paper. And that's how he came up with what his cost would be. And then how he came up with his price. Because I'm dripping with sarcasm here. Of course, listing price is determined by what you want to make minus your cost, which is not the case. Or I guess what you want to net minus your cost. So I think I said that right. Anyway, the funny thing is, like, that can all vary so much, right? So like at that time when he did this, the transfer tax per thousand was different in the counties, different counties, including the one next to us. Some prices are going to vary by what title company you use. There's just all kinds of different things involved. So while it could maybe give him an idea, like, to be a smart man, that was just not a really smart thing to do, but whatever. And then the other one was a case where, again, a very smart man, he knew that realtor fees were, of course, a cost that he would be saving by selling the house himself. He didn't realize that there were other costs associated with selling a house. And I figured this out because I brought a buyer, and he was kind enough to say, "I will pay your commission. I understand you've been working with this person. I understand that, you're going to show them the house and do some things that way. And I would love to pay your commission," which is great because a lot of times that doesn't happen. We work for free. And the funny thing is, the seller wouldn't work for free, or, other people wouldn't, but that's sometimes what happens. And that's fine because that's the nature of the business. I get that. But in this case, he said, "I want to pay your commission." And I knew he didn't realize any other costs when he said, "Okay, we're going to sell it at X, which minus your commission, we'll get a check for X." And I thought, "Oh, this guy does not realize he has other costs." And I said, "Okay, let's stop for a minute. Do you know you have other costs to sell your house? You've got, tax proration, you've got transfer tax, you've got title fees." Well, he did not. He had no idea. And so I said, "Let's get this breakdown of cost correct so there's no surprises, and you can make sure that, you still want to pay commission, and that that you still want to sell, before we had a situation like what my husband and I had when we bought our first house, and he didn't realize what he was signing. So we made sure those numbers were correct, and I explained that to him. And again, this is a smart man. It's not that he didn't can't do business or can't take care of numbers. It's just when you're a realtor, you are seeing this stuff all the time. You know all the little ins and outs. You know what all the costs are. You know what can happen. You know what pre-approvals look like, and you know what the different loan types are. And when you're somebody who's selling a house once every 5, 10, 15, 20 years, of course you're not gonna, know that as well. It's like when I had one baby to the next, there are some things that you forget. And it's like, I always forgot how old they were when they started having baby food. Like, I could never remember that. And my kids are only 3 years apart. And I had 4, so I should really be able to know that. But it's not that someone's not intelligent enough to figure it out if they're selling for themselves. A lot of times it's just that they don't realize it because they don't do transactions enough to remember how it works. And that was the case with this guy here. He just didn't know about those things. And then, how about this one? This is really not a numbers thing, but I was showing a house a few weeks ago, about 35 minutes from where I live, and it was a for sale by owner. He had listed with one of those, like, put him on the MLS, really cheap companies. And so I was supposed to contact the seller to show the house, which I did. And he was very nice. It was all via text. He was super nice. He set up my showing for me. And then, when I showed up to the empty house, a man was leaving, and he introduced himself, and here he was, the neighbor. The seller did not want to pay a realtor, didn't live at the house. I don't know where they lived. I didn't figure that out, but I got the impression that it was not close by. And so his neighbor was letting me into the showing, went over there in advance in the cold winter, turned on the lights, locked it up, turned off the lights and locked it up before or after we left, which I did that, but he had to double check just to make sure it was done. And here's the thing. I love my neighbors. I have phenomenal neighbors. I would do anything for them. And I know our neighbors have been helpful to us. I just can't imagine asking a neighbor to tie themselves down to their house so that they can show your house. Like, I don't know. That just seems like a little much. And the disclaimer here on that, to the benefit of this seller is, I don't know their financial situation. I do know that they didn't live in the house very long, so they might not have equity and might not have had a choice. And I do realize that that's a case, but it's just something to think about to make sure that you do understand, like, yes, realtors are paid percentages or however they're paid. And yes, that can seem like a lot of money, but that's because they help you out with a lot of these situations that we just talked about. So here's another one. This is I saved the best for last. So a number of years ago, I had some clients who were looking for a house, and it was a time when it was really hard, well, kind of like now, but when it was really hard to have a house and sell it and try to find one, especially with the kind of house they were looking at and in the area, they just didn't last. So they decided, hey, let's just go ahead and have us to sell our house, and then we'll move in with our parents and we'll look for a house then. So yes, we're moving twice with 2 little kids, but it will make sure that we don't get bumped off. We can plan better, and it just worked out really well for them. So we find this house that they love, and we go under contract, and everything is going fine. Their loan's going fine. They have inspections. It's fine. Their appraisal's done. It's fine. Like, everything's fine. We're just a few days away from closing, and I receive a panicked phone call from the listing agent of this house. She's like, Esther, you're not going to believe this. And I'm like, what? And she said that her sellers were buying a for sale by owner house, which she knew when she listed their house is what they were buying. Because she said to them, do you need any help being represented in this case, in this scenario, as a for sale by owner, as a buyer buying a for sale by owner? And they said, nope, we're good. And so she thought everything was good after all the people had been going through the process as a seller, right? They never told her there were any problems. And then she finds out a few days before our closing, and I can't remember how she found out. I wish I could remember that they had never made loan application. Well, for those of you who don't know, once you find a house and you have a fully signed contract, you make loan application, which is where you go to the lender and he starts the loan process for that house. So you have your pre-approval, which says, yes, you should be able to buy a house, up to a certain price range, and this is how you're buying. You give that to the seller so that they know you're good. And then if they pick your house, they pick your offer, then you make loan applications specific to that house. Well, these buyers, for sale by owner buyers, by the way, had just sold their house as a seller. So they should have known okay, an appraiser comes through and so forth. Didn't realize that their pre-approval was not loan application. They thought that was loan application, which it still blows my mind, because you would think they would know, okay, so we have this other house and our buyers give us a pre-approval, but regardless, they did not know. So they had not made loan application. And so we're 2 days away from, we think we're closing and moving into this house, or the buyers are moving into this house, and the seller has another 30 days until they can move because they haven't made loan application yet. And they were essentially telling us they're not moving. And that's why their agent was panicked. Oh my goodness, this is not good. They're essentially not, squatting in their own house. And so my buyers were amazing. They actually kind of thought the whole thing was humorous. They were completely understanding. And because they were living with her parents, they had the flexibility just to stay there, for another month and wait, which is awesome. It was awesome. They were so understanding. It's awesome. They were so kind. And it's especially awesome they had another place to stay, because that could have gotten really, really ugly, really, really fast. But my point is that if they had said to their agent who listed their house that my buyers got, hey, yeah, that would be great. Maybe help us through this process. We haven't, other than selling this house with you, we haven't bought or sold for a while. And they didn't. And I'm assuming because, no one wanted to pay her, they felt like they were adults and they could do it, which is understandable. I mean, I understand you're an adult and you've bought a house before and you feel like you can remember it. But the disaster that could have happened was barely avoided, only because my buyers were in a situation to make it doable, and any potential disaster was able to be avoided. So I just want you to know that every time I've had to work with a for sale by owner, either or they've sold it on their own, but they've had questions and asked me, or my buyer has bought a for sale by owner. Every time I'm cleaning up messes, if they're selling it on their own and they call me and say, oh my goodness, what just happened? Or I am taking care of so much to make sure there are no disasters because they don't know what they're doing. And again, I completely understand, not wanting to use a realtor. Like I said, we did when we bought our first house and when we sold that house. I understand thinking that we don't necessarily do a lot. We do a ton of stuff, but part of that is because, again, it's a lot of behind the scenes that you don't see. And the other part of that is that, and I get it, there are so many terrible, crappy, unethical, evil, I guess I can say evil, I guess that's okay, realtors that are out there, that they give us a bad name. I know that's part of the problem. And I get it. I get the, the nervousness about using somebody. But what I want you to know today is that sellers, you can definitely sell your house on your own. And like I said, I get it. I understand where you're coming from. I do think that you should really, really rethink it and think about what you don't know and what you do know and be honest about it. Don't be like the guy who, we bought our house from, who said, I can do whatever a realtor does, because he really didn't understand at all what people did. And he hadn't sold a house in 20 years. So I get that he, didn't see what all we did and what's involved. And then buyers, this is just a little warning to you. Just to, before you're buying a house for sale by owner, just think through it. See if you actually want to contact a realtor and have them walk you through the process. Because even if you've bought a house before, or maybe you're taking your parents through and they've bought a house before, or the seller's bought a house before, there's just definitely more to it than people realize. And it can be nerve-wracking to buy a house, when you are represented with a realtor, or to sell a house and represented with a realtor, especially if you're using agents who aren't great. So I can see why people are like that. I'm just saying it might make it a whole lot less stressful for you if you do choose to use a realtor. And you don't have to. That's the great thing about this. It is 100% your decision. So I guess if nothing else, take my stories and make sure those don't happen to you, right? Make sure if you're a buyer, you make loan application. Make sure if you are selling your house on your own that your buyer makes loan application. Make sure that you contact a title company to get accurate numbers of what your costs are going to be, not guessing by your son's, net sheet what yours is going to be. And acknowledge that realtors, at least the good ones, really do a lot for the percentage that they're paid. And that if you do need somebody, or you think you might need somebody, or you're thinking, I'm going to talk to an agent and see if it's as simple as I think it is and I can do it. Or if I do need to contact somebody, then go ahead and do that. And then see what you think from there. And that is my little bit of wisdom today about telling you that selling your house on your own is certainly an option. Buying a for sale by owner house is certainly an option. Just make sure that you think it through and make sure it's the right step for you. So I hope that you have a great day, and we'll talk next week. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. If there's anything we can help you with, please reach out. All of our contact information is on the show notes. Have a blessed day.